Mr. Barnes, welcome to Diaspora Food Stories. How are you today?
I am well. I am very well.
Awesome. Well, it is an honor and a privilege to speak with you. Um, Pop Son Farm, peanut farmer, fourth generation peanut farmer. And so I'm just excited. We did feature you on Cuisine Noir. So we're going to have our listeners be able to reference that article that really goes into a lot of detail because, we want to get into some really great conversation today. So definitely want listeners to go on to Cuisine Noir to read that article. But this is just being able to talk to you and also hear you tell your story. We wrote it, but now you're going to be able to tell it, and so very excited. So thank you again for joining.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So let's sort of let the people know who you are, and let's start there.
Oh, what a question. Who I am. I am proud to be able to say I'm a fourth generation farmer that gets to play in the dirt.
All right.
There's too many times people go through their entire lives, never find and identify their passion. So they're never really committed to anything because they don't have passion for a thing.
Mm,
But for those of us that can find that little niche, that little thing that brings us internal joy and external benefit, it is nothing like it. I've been playing in the dirt, and that's what I call it, just playing in the dirt,
mhm.
all of my life. And now it has become something that has carried my name in places that I'll never go. So come
Wow.
here. You never know. You might go there now.
Wow. So born and raised in Virginia.
Southampton County.
Wow. Tell us a little bit about that, your upbringing.
Now we were born and raised. We were sharecroppers. My father was a sharecropper, and it taught us a lot of valuable lessons on how to exist in a world where you actually had nothing.
Mm,
We were born and raised in a four-room house, and I remember when we even got electricity in the house.
wow.
We were there in the house on this one warm summer day, and a gentleman came up to the house, started drilling holes in the wall. We didn't know what he was doing. So every time he drilled a hole in the wall, one of my brothers or sisters, I would peep through the hole that he was drilling. He was drilling holes to run the wire. And I was about 5 or 6 years old when we got electricity in the house. Up until that time, we had candlelight at night
Mm,
and a battery operated radio that we listened to the different programs. Oh my goodness. Amos and Andy, Sky King, Fury, all of that used to come on radio, and you sit and you listen. And the one good thing about it, it gave us the ability to be able to see with our imagination. We could see what was really not there.
right.
That allows us to be able to tell a story because we can craft that story by our imagination.
Absolutely.
It's sad in a world where people have no imagination. There was a gentleman last week that told me, he said, some of the people that I used to work with at the mill, the paper mill, said that one thing about Eli, they call me Eli at the mill, he's always inventing and making something. What the mill thought was trash, he would haul home and make equipment out of it. And I went for a while, I was building trailers out of trash that
Wow.
they were throwing away. And it's just, even to the day, one of my tractors had a broken piece on it. And I called, and you can't get it because my tractors are way older than I am. But I went, as long as I've got a torch, a welding machine, and woodworking tools, if somebody else made it, I can make it.
Wow. Now, as you were growing up and, you're watching your dad, um, in the fields, and you were part of it, right? This is a family thing, but your parents also pushed education. So you went to
Oh, yes.
Tennessee and got your education. But at the time, because sometimes we don't know what we have till it's gone or till we come back and revisit it, right? So
Oh,
as
yeah.
you're growing up, it's a way of life. Did you think that you would carry on the legacy?
I've always said that I was going to be a farmer
Okay.
because I'm that little boy that walked down behind my father. And if he would stop walking, I would bump into him. My brothers and sisters, they were adept at academics. They loved the academics, the trig, the algebra, the psychology, all of that stuff. But I tell people, these are my gifts here. I love working with my hands, and my love of automotive and diesel mechanics came. My father had an old '64 Galaxy 500. And a cousin of ours had one that was broke down. So he brought it back there and pulled it in the woods for parts. And I asked my father, could I go back there and work on that old car?
Mm.
He said, yeah, but don't hurt yourself. And I went back there not knowing anything about automotive and diesel mechanics, tore that engine apart and got it to start one time.
Wow.
It wrecked after it started, but I was hooked because I understood enough about what I was doing to get it to fire up one time.
Wow.
That's when there are two things that I was interested in: farming and automotive and diesel mechanics.
Wow. Now, what about, so tell me in terms of, after schooling and working, has it always been named Pop Sun Farm?
No, Pop Son Farm is a name that generated through me and my son,
Okay.
trying to pass on and have him involved in it so that this is something, that can go on
Right.
after I'm gone. Some people say Pop and Son. No, it's just Pop Son.
Okay.
It just runs together because he lives on the farm with me. He's there, Dad. You whatever you need. He told me something that really blessed me this week. He said, Dad, he said, I want to learn everything about farming that I can learn.
Wow.
He said, I want to be here. I want to learn how to weld. I want to learn farming. I want to learn how to cultivate. I want to learn how to plant all of the things that I do because I get joy out of doing it. And now he is, I guess, maturing to that point.
Mhm.
And it's a blessing to me.
Wow. And one of the things, that I've been seeing, I've been doing with the magazine and everything 14 years, it'd be 15 years. And I am enjoying seeing the Black community really return back to the land and return back to these roots. We were talking earlier around what Leah Penniman said around, knowing the difference between, and I'm paraphrasing, the difference between the scene of the crime and the crime itself, right? We know that the land was the scene of the crime, but it was not the crime. And
Right.
so finding that healing, finding those roots, it's been really refreshing and just watching that. So what are your thoughts about what you're seeing and what's going on within the
And
Black community?
what I say to that is that for those of us who are connected to the land with passion and with fond and some not so fond memories, there's nothing like it because in the spring of the year, when you go out in the field and you can begin to till that soil and you get a smell of fresh soil that no other time of the year do you get.
Mhm.
It is intoxicating for those of us who love it.
Right.
Um, Sadly, there are not many of us as the Black community, or I guess the appropriate word, people of color,
Mhm.
that can or is interested too much in farming because there are some, as I was mentioning earlier, that have the mistaken idea that what I do is too close to a dark period in life called slavery.
Okay.
And they associate what I do with the ills and the harms and the bad memories of slavery. But my response is this: how can this be equated to slavery when I own the land,
Mm.
I own the equipment, the income comes to me, and I decide what I'm going to do with everything that I do?
And you're feeding families
Feeding family and community.
and communities. And how do they think they get their food? I mean, if they want to tie food, this whole process back to that, then what would they eat?
My daughter is an educator in Edenton, North Carolina. And you would be surprised the numbers of our young students who say food comes from the grocery store.
Mm,
And their mind doesn't go any further than that. It just comes from the grocery store. But the grocery store has to get it from somebody.
right.
And there's nothing like fresh quality food because I raise watermelons, cantaloupe, sweet corn,
Mm,
butter beans,
wow.
sweet potatoes, you know. So there's a lot of things. Farming is not one thing, it is a collection of so many things brought together. And I tell people, I don't ask for my farming peanuts to do it all. Each thing that I do just need to give me a little bit. And if each thing can give me a little bit so that I can continue to do what I'm doing, then my father's mindset is, son, if you raise enough to have some to give away, you'll always have enough for yourself.
Nice.
And I live by that.
I love that. I love that. And the other thing, that we know what's going on nowadays is food sovereignty, right? There's nothing like being able to know, grow your own food, harvest it, know where it's going, and like I said again, feed your food, feed your families, feed your communities. And there's just a lot wrapped around that we're seeing my partners in Toronto, here in the States. I mean, there's nothing like growing your own food, especially with inflation these days, right? And so the whole
Absolutely.
urban farming movement has really taken off, and that's exciting to see too.
And I'm glad you brought that up because I have multiple people that call me from urban environments and they say, teach me how to raise this, that, or the other. So I do some instruction on some raised bed gardens. One person in particular in Connecticut has a rooftop area that they want to create a rooftop garden.
Nice.
Then there's a lady in Norfolk, Virginia, that wants me to teach her how to raise watermelons. So it is surprising, but it is refreshing.
And it's taken off in ways that you never thought it would, huh?
Never, never did, never thought it would.
Wow.
I get to play in the dirt, and
I love that too. And there's nothing like playing in the dirt. And I know, when I've worked with young kids in the past, even my nephews and nieces, there's nothing like getting your hands dirty. And then when they start to see that tomato that they planted, that's like, oh my goodness. I remember I got a cherry seed, I want to say kindergarten or something, and I planted that in our backyard growing up. And by the time we moved from that house, that tree was so big. And I was like, that is my tree that I planted with that seed that I got at school.
that's the inspiration to which we pass on to the next generation. Be proactive in taking care of yourself and feeding yourself and getting quality produce. And no offense to anyone who gets the produce that they can get simply because that's all that they can get.
Right.
But kudos to those who are willing to put in the time, the effort, and go out there and raise that produce fresh. You'll never taste the true flavor of produce until you got it fresh,
Wow.
not processed, not canned, not flash dried, not steamed. Nothing wrong with all of that because it is necessary to cover the masses. But when you can get it fresh, when I was growing up, we would go to the garden and everybody talk about it. Well, you can't eat it like that. Take a tomato off of the plant, buff it on your shirt. There was no such thing as water. You buff it off on your shirt. We would dig white potatoes. Yeah, we both call them Irish potatoes.
Mhm.
We'd dig them up out of the ground, buff them off, and eat them raw.
Wow.
And people say, you can't do that. Last year, when I raised that 38,000 pounds of sweet corn for the food bank, I actually had people out there in the field eating raw sweet corn, fresh. And they were like, you can't eat that, that's raw. And my response is, taste it.
Mm,
Don't just taste it.
right.
And they were like, this is sweet. One of the things that we do, we no offense to anybody, we overprocess that thing, and we take a lot of the flavor and the value out of our food
Hmm.
by overprocessing it.
Wow. Wow.
When you can take that corn and just simply steam it, it's almost like eating candy. Anyway,
Wow. Wow. So let's get into peanut farming because
yes, Lord.
how do you farm peanuts?
Peanuts, it is a lifestyle. Raising peanuts is a lifestyle because that was when we were growing up, that was the money crop. Everything else was support crop. The hogs were support to the family, the chickens, all of that was support to the family for eating and whatever. But peanuts was the money crop. That's how you earned your living.
Okay.
And you go out in the spring of the year, they don't do it anymore, and you break the land. And once you get it broke, then you had to disc it, then you had to drag it. So many processes
Hmm.
that had just to get the land ready to be able to plant.
Okay.
And then once you got that all ready, my father would go out and he had a mule. We were planting with a mule first,
Okay.
a mule and a one-row planter. And he would set up peanut poles down the field. And he would line that mule up with that first peanut pole. And each pole, when you look at it from one end, you didn't see but one pole. That's how he kept his road straight.
Wow.
And he would walk that mule until that pole hit that mule right dead in the face. Then he'd stop, move it, and then carry the mule to the next pole. And one of the things he said, boy, keep your road straight now. Keep your road straight. Once you got them planted, in the olden days, once they came up, the only chemical that we used on peanuts when I was a little boy was we used some sulfur dust
Okay.
to knock down the bugs and the worms.
Okay.
We didn't have the diseases that we have now. There wasn't existent.
Hmm.
Nobody knew about black root rot and
Hmm.
sclerotinia, white mold. And oh, we went out there with a hoe and the whole family, mother, my father, my mother, my brothers and my sisters, all except my baby sister. She got to lay on the pallet around the edge of the field and up and down that field all day long.
Wow.
And I look at it now and I say, how could we work in that sunlight, direct sunlight, all day long during the heat of the day? You went out there in the morning and you stayed to 12 o'clock. You went back to the house at 12,
Hmm.
ate lunch,
Hmm.
and at about 1:30, you were back in the field. And you stayed in the field. The indication that let us know when it was time to come home, you would count the shadows that the sun would cast across the field. Because nobody had a watch.
Right. Right.
So it was all done by, okay. It's just like at lunchtime. When it was time to go home, you could, if you could take your foot and place it in your head shadow on the ground, it was straight up 12 o'clock.
And so when you went home, well, like you said, though, we didn't have any watches at that time. Were there clocks? I know that sounds like bad to ask, but
Yes, but they had a few wind-up clocks and all,
okay.
but you understood time then.
Right. I was going to say, so when you looked at a clock or whatever, you guys were right on the money then.
We were right on it. And now, even now, I don't own an alarm clock. I get up every morning at 5 o'clock, whether I go to bed at 11 o'clock or 3 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
5 o'clock, my eyes open, and I start my day.
Wow.
You
That
know, it is
is
the idea that internal clock, once you train yourself to that internal clock, it is fail safe because it's going to do what it's going to do.
absolutely. Absolutely. Let me ask you, obviously things have changed in terms of the climate in the
Yes.
world. How has that impacted your farming practices?
Well, one of the things, we're having much drier years
Okay.
than we used to. The weather is hotter than it used to be.
Hmm.
And then a lot of the practices that have been passed on and taught to us as farmers takes us somewhat out of the mindset of what we used to be,
Okay.
because now the the chemical treatment and even the cultivation practices that we used to do are no longer done.
Hmm.
How we used to keep the weeds out of the field. My father would plow, keep the ground stirred. That would keep the grass and the weeds from germinating in that loose soil,
Hmm.
and we pull the weeds off of the road. Now, I don't even think not many people even have a cultivator anymore because they don't cultivate anymore.
Okay.
Because now science and technology has advanced to a stage where you can go out and spray a chemical that's specific, targeted to this plant, to that plant, and won't harm the other plant.
Okay.
So you have chemicals that you can spray to get the grass out, get certain weeds out, and it doesn't affect the plants. They've gone in with I don't know what they do with it. It's far beyond my understanding, but the
Okay.
stuff works. But
Okay.
I choose to use a lot of the old-fashioned ways because
Okay.
it keeps me grounded with where I came from,
Right.
who I was raised to be, and it's a dying art.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I want to go back for a second. Peanuts, do they require a lot of heat? Do they
Yeah,
require a lot of water?
peanuts require a lot of heat,
Okay.
not a lot of water.
Okay. Okay.
They do well. They need enough moisture to stay vibrant,
Okay.
but not much,
Gotcha.
because when it gets a lot of water, then hence comes so many of your soil-borne diseases, white
Oh,
mold, sclerotinia, black root rot, that used to not to be, but now is prevalent.
okay.
And at one year, I really hurt myself because I said, well, and I was trying to farm a little bit conventional then. I said, I'm not going to spray anything.
Right.
And I walked in the field one day and I looked and I said, the vines looked like they were just dying.
Mhm. Mhm.
And went out and got the um, conservation officer to come out, take a look, took a look, and he said, you have sclerotinia in this field.
Mm.
He said, you got to spray for it or it'll take the field out. 2 weeks, you won't have nothing here because it doesn't stop. And the treatment for it was like $600-700 a gallon. And it was that takes the when you're doing peanuts, that's a big hit out of
Absolutely.
your bottom line. So, but anyway,
And was that cause and so that was from the too much water, you probably?
the moisture, the water, because it's
Okay.
humid,
Okay.
then you get a lot of rain come in, and then we plant now a whole lot closer than we used to. When I was growing up, my father said you planted peanuts 6 to 8 inches apart,
Mhm.
each plant, so that you could chop in between each one. Well, now they plant peanuts inch and a half 1.5 inches apart because they can get so much more production
Mm-hmm.
out of the field by planting that close because they don't have to chop anymore.
Okay. Okay.
And
Is that a good thing though?
it's good for production's sake, but then you've got to stick to the present day methods of chemical application to keep your crop growing and
Mhm.
growing healthy
Okay.
because the air doesn't get to circulate all through and the
Right.
land doesn't get to dry out like because it creates a canopy. And if you look up under there, it's damp. It gets moldy under there.
Well, you really got, I mean, like you said, it's a science when you know your crops and to prevent all of these things. What is the planting season and the harvesting season for you when it comes to the peanuts?
We'll get the peanuts planted in May.
Okay.
Between the first week of May, we have planted as late as the 15th to 20th of June.
Okay.
So it's a good window of planting time. And they will grow. And then our harvesting time is late September to October.
Okay. All
It's our
right.
digging and our harvesting time.
Wow. So you're going to be planting. We're in April right now. So you're going to be planting pretty soon coming up here.
Less than a month.
Oh, and how much when everything is said and done in September, October, how much does that yield?
It all depends because there's so many varieties of peanuts now. Some like I hate to call it this but that's the only thing I know it's called it. It's a Spanish peanut. It's a little small, very small peanut, but it's high in oil content.
Okay.
So the market wants that because of the processing.
Okay.
But what I plant is an eating peanut
Gotcha.
for chocolate covered peanuts, for salted peanuts, for
Mm.
dry roasted, all the
Good
sriracha
stuff.
peanuts, all that sort of thing. But you don't get the volume. When we were growing up, if a farmer made 2,500 to 3,000 pounds of peanuts per acre, he did good,
Mhm,
had a good year.
mhm.
In that time, it was considered bags per acre, 25 bags per acre, 100-pound bags, 2,500 pounds. Now we've got farmers making 7,000 pounds of peanuts per
Wow.
acre.
Wow.
The processes and the technology and
Mhm.
whew, it's just changed so dramatically. And
Yes.
that's why I say I'm so small that I cannot compete with the peanut farmers, quote unquote, of the day.
Mhm.
So I stay in my little niche and I find out that in my little world, there's room for me.
Gotcha. I love that. I love that. And with that being said, I'm thinking like in California, I don't know if there's certain parts of the country where peanuts are more prevalent to be grown. I'm thinking in California because that's where I'm at. I don't know if like the Bakersfield, Fresno area, because that's typically hot. But otherwise, is there the climate for growing peanuts? Is it mainly East Coast, or do you know of peanut farms on the West Coast?
Mainly East Coast.
Okay.
We have something called sandy loam, which is the soil type that peanuts just love.
Okay.
And the whole East Coast, when you start moving a little south, a little north of Surrey, you're
Hmm.
starting to get to the fringes. But peanuts are grown all the way down through South Carolina, Georgia, North Carolina, Virginia,
Nice.
as far east to the foothills. So that this soil that we got here is just perfect
This is perfect for it, huh?
for the peanut.
Nice. And then how many? So you say you plant an eating peanut, but there's a couple of different varieties or just one?
There's a lot of
Oh,
varieties.
okay.
Peanuts that we were raised with, um, they don't plant anymore
Okay.
because they were so susceptible to the diseases and the different things that have now developed. When we were growing up, the main peanut planted was something called a Florida Giant. It was a large peanut produced well, but it's highly susceptible to mold and leaf spot and sclerotinia and all of that. So the scientists in their processes, they develop these different peanuts uh, types that are resistant to a lot of those diseases.
Okay.
Now, no one, I don't even think you can even find Florida Giants anymore. They've got numbers, NC13, they've got Mallory's, they've got Bailey's. There's just so many
Wow.
different types of peanut. And you
Oh,
choose what you want to plant according to what your end goal is.
nice, nice. Let's talk about your partnership with Hub Peanut Company. Let's talk about that. That's exciting.
It, it really is because I bought that farm in 1989. And I tried conventional farming, but I was too small to really be able to make it doing that,
Hmm.
because you had to have the drying trailers and you had to have the dryers and you got to, the gas and all of that. But I was raising peanuts, and once I converted back to conventional, putting them on the shop, by the time I got my peanuts ready to sell, the buyer's market had closed.
Mm,
Because that window of time that the buyers are really buying is from about that third week of September all the way up to about the first, second week of November. That's it. Because all of the peanuts have been dug, harvested, and marketed by then. So that the buyer's market was already closed. And for several years, I raised peanuts and fed them to the hogs and the deer
okay.
because I had nowhere I could sell them at.
Okay.
I would go to the different peanut companies in the area. And I was so small, no one really took me seriously because I really made no difference.
Mm,
And one particular year, about 4 years ago, I'd gone, and the last company that I had not approached was Hubs. So I had the peanuts processed, graded, for human consumption, a whole 9 yards. And I showed up here at Hubs with 2 bags shelled peanuts. And I came in and I had done the Virginia peanut story. I had been on PBS and different things I had done. And when I came in, I made everybody aware who I was. And Marshall came out. He said, I know you. You're
mm.
the guy that was on television. You did the Virginia peanut story. How can I help you? So I told him I have peanuts. They're already graded, tags are still on it. And I was wondering if you all would be interested in buying my little small crop. And Marshall's eyes lit up because this was something that he had been wanting to do, to
Wow.
get
That's
back
timing.
into to a small farmer, to something back from history. And he took the peanuts. He said, let me make sure we can carry them through our process. He called me back, said, we'll take every one of them. Unfortunately, that first year, I had them in a cold storage unit on the farm, and I
Mm,
did something that I don't do. I
okay.
took a vacation,
Mm,
went to Maryland for a week, and when I came back, the unit had gone down, and all of the peanuts had went through a heat and began to mold.
mm.
So that first year, I had to throw away every last one of them. I carried them in the woods and poured them out in the woods. But that next year, it's that the rest has been history. Hubs came out, they buy the crop, they compensate me well. It, it's it's just a win for everybody involved.
Wow. So and so there's the persistence. You kept pushing, right? Even though you heard the no's, you
Never
kept
stop.
you
My
kept
my
pushing.
my father always said, son, if you don't stop, you can get somewhere. Keep putting one foot in front of the other foot. And all of a sudden you'll look up and you'll be in new surroundings because you will have moved from where you were to where you are. And that's life. And I encourage young people, I go to school sometimes and speak to agriculture classes and entrepreneur classes. And one of the things that I tell the students is find your passion
Hmm.
and stick with your passion. Because your passion, if you stick with it, it'll make room for you in this great
Absolutely.
big world. And I use famous Amos cookies as a perfect example. Years, famous Amos walked on the streets in California with baking cookies and giving away samples. And then one day, somebody recognized it. And famous Amos cookies they took off and all over the country. I'm proud to say that Pop Sun Farm Peanuts.
Is
I've
what
got
you see.
peanuts overseas
Nice.
and in all 50 states.
Well, I'm looking forward to getting my hands on some. So I believe some are coming my way. So I'm very excited about that. What's, I know you farm other crops as well, but, as you're just really just enjoying this moment, um, tell us, anything new coming up that you're working on that, you're going to introduce with Pop Sun Farm?
Well, not so much as new as expanding
Okay.
with the cooperation of the Southeastern Food Bank. We have partners who are working with me to help continue this process.
Okay.
The Southeastern Food Bank, Kroger came on board. Of course, Hubs is on board with me. So we've got partners that are really working with me. And then uh, New Life Church that owns the land, that part of the land that I'm operating on now. So it is a wonderful opportunity at this stage of life to be able to produce and present something that is not just pleasant to me.
Mhm.
The quality. That's one of the things that I tell people. If you really want to see what a real quality peanut is, get it raw
Mm.
and chew it up. People are like, it's raw.
I
Yes.
we got to get over that,
Chew
huh?
it up when it's raw. And once you chew that peanut when it's raw, as your teeth is working on it, all of a sudden you get a boom, you get a hit of sweetness that only comes from a shock cure peanut. It's something about that slow, methodical, sun cured drying process that creates a very sweet peanut. The comparison that I like to use is for those who like raisins.
Hmm. Hmm.
You don't go get a bunch of raisins from off the vine and stick them in the oven, turn the oven on to 400 and cook them down to raisins.
Right.
Process doesn't work like that. To get that sweet raisin, it's a slow process that allows the extra moisture to leave and concentrate the things on the inside. So, anyway,
Awesome. Awesome. Well, tell everyone where they can find you and connect with you. That's most importantly. How can we, continue to find out what you're up to?
well, my email uh, address is elisha.barnes1960 @gmail.com. Um, I don't know if anybody would like to come out and visit to see the farm or be a part of it, but 28028 Little Texas Road. I invite people to come out. This year, I really got a blessing because when I was shocking the peanuts, the process of putting them on the poles,
Okay.
when I was shocking the peanuts this year, I had some volunteers that came out. There was one lady that came out. She was 84, 85 years old.
Hmm.
She said, Mr. Barnes, I can't do much, but I can help. So she came out and she could only hold one peanut vine at a time. And she would shake that vine and carry it and put it on the pole. And I told her, I said, every peanut vine that you put on the pole is a blessing to me. I had some of the other gentlemen that came. One had come from the hospital, still had the band on his arm and the gauze
Wow.
on his arm, came out and worked with me for 2 or 3 days, shocking peanuts. I had I have some family members and some community people completely non-related, and these are not just for lack of a better way to put this, these are not just black people, these black and white. And I love this because what it is doing, it is bringing the harmony of Southampton County together, because this was the landscape of the county everywhere.
Wow.
Everybody did this. And people are coming out in the field, standing and shedding tears, because it takes them back to a time when life was so simple.
Oh, I was just going to say that. Listening to you as you were telling your story about growing up, it's like, wow, things were so less complicated and just simple.
And
And
see, that's what I know we are among people most blessed, because mom and dad right there in the house every day of my life. I was uh, 19 years old before I ever slept a night away from my home.
Mhm.
Mom and dad there every day.
Wow.
You ate, mom fixed, everybody ate at the same time at the dinner table. And we're speaking about education. Mom was a stickler. You're going to get your education.
Mhm.
Now, I, on the other hand, kind of like to play dirt. I just like it. And in, I forget what year it was, I was just turned 15, going on 16. And they had made a law that said when a child turned 15 years and 8 months, they could quit school.
Mm.
And I got brave enough to tell that 260-pound ball of muscle that was my daddy, walked in the house that day and told him, the law says that when I turn 15, 8 months, I can quit school. So I'm going to quit school. I'm found me a job. Well, Papa was very matter of fact about it. So after I picked myself up out the floor,
I was gonna say, I think I know what happened.
he said, go to bedroom, boy. I'm like, I'm almost 16 years old now. But he went to the bedroom. I said, he gonna spank me. He said, take them clothes off. So I took my shirt, my pants off. He said, take those underwear off. And I took my underwear off. And then he reached me here. He grabbed me by my arm and drove me to the front door, slung me out the front door and said, everything in my house goes to school and get an education.
Mm.
You think you're grown. Take everything that belongs to you and leave my house.
Which was nothing, huh?
Nothing. And it felt like he kept me out there for hours. But when he said, do you think you can go to school? Yes, sir. I'll go to school. I'll graduate. I got back. I went. I was president of the choir, president of the vice president of school, president of the senior class, president of the film club, president of debating for forensics. Yes. And I asked my mother one time, I said, Mom, why did you let him do that? You didn't say anything. She said, because your dad had to reach you in your mind. He could have spanked you and you'd have grit your teeth and you would have walked out and never went back to school.
Right.
But he couldn't go any further than the 6th grade
Mm.
before he had to go to the fields. My mom made it to the 8th or 9th grade. And they were not going to have any of their children handicapped because they didn't have any education.
All right now. All right now.
Because of that, a bank manager, pharmaceutical salesman, my baby sister worked for the FBI. My brother Scotty, Roger was an accountant. I mean, my older sister managed the Kmart store. So we all found our niche
Right.
because our parents wouldn't let us give up on us.
And it's hard to, I look back and it's at that time, you just don't think they know what's best for you or they know, but they know.
They know.
They know.
And when they look at what they have to go through to raise us and to get us up healthy, now I look back and I see that's the smartest man in the world. My mom and my dad, they were the smartest couple in the world.
Okay.
Back then, I thought they were just dumb as ditch dirt.
They were just mom and dad.
But now I look back and the lessons that my father taught, my mother taught, I hear their voices now clearer than I have at any time in life. When I want to feel close to my dad, I've got his old 420 John Deere tractor. I start that old thing up and go riding around the fields. And it puts a sort of warm feeling over you.
Nice. Nice. Oh, that is beautiful. That is so beautiful to have those memories and to have that. That is awesome, Mr.
And
Barnes.
that's the thing that I try to encourage my son and my grandchildren now. I know that my season in the sun is coming to an end.
Mm-hmm.
I know that my years ahead of me are much less than the years behind me.
Mm-hmm.
This July, I'll be 69 years old. And I can still get out there and play in the dirt. And as my daughter said, Daddy, you can work the circles around 3 or 4 good men right now. But not what I used to be, but thank God that I am still who I am. My father and my mother, their values and that they taught not only for farming, but for the word of God, there's nothing compared to it.
Absolutely. And you've got your son that's going to carry the legacy on. And so he's the 5th generation. And so hopefully there's going to be a 6th and a 7th and an 8th and so on.
And so on.
Mr. Barnes, now I have to ask, are you on social media?
No, I'm not.
That's okay.
my daughter tells me, she said, Daddy, you need to get a Facebook. You need to get a Facebook page or something.
Mm-hmm.
But for me to do that means that I've got to be sitting doing that. And I actually,
You need to be out in the field.
I'm in the field.
Well, I know we can definitely follow Hubb's Peanut Company on social media to find out what's going on, anything new. So I'm sure we can try to keep up with you on their social media pages. So
Yeah. I'm gonna let my daughter go ahead and set me up something.
Okay.
So that,
you heard it here.
So that we can, people can at least kind of know what's going on. That way I can kind of reach out and let people know what I have coming off or what I'm producing for this particular year and things of that nature.
And that's the beauty too. Hopefully your daughter, if you got grandkids, even your son, no pressure. But they can help manage it so that you can continue to do what you do. But at least it's another way of making sure that legacy continues on. So definitely look out for that there. Well, again, thank you so much for joining me today. It was an absolute pleasure.
Well, it is to my benefit that, you all are even interested in little old me, as they say. I gave one comparison as to how small in comparison to the peanut industry I am.
Mm-hmm.
I said, consider an elephant. And on the back of the elephant, there rides a flea. On the back of the flea rides a mite. On the back of the mite rides an amoeba. That's me.
Oh, the good amoeba, though. We don't like the bad amoebas. We like the good amoebas.
But see, I'm using it as size because,
Right.
I know I don't affect the world at large in its totality. But if I can make a difference while I'm here,
Mm-hmm.
then when I'm gone, someone will look back at the pages of my life that I've left and appreciate my time being here.
Absolutely. And I would just want to say, you may be, in terms of, size of the company, but your impact is huge. And I just hope you continue to know that you, like you said, you've got a huge impact that you're making in this industry regardless. And so definitely want to celebrate and congratulate you for that.
I do thank you. I thank you all for all of your support and your interest.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Mr. Barnes. It was but a wonderful. Take care.
All righty. I thank you all. I bid you all well. Y'all keep a check on me.
We will. Bye bye.
All right. Bye bye.